The Valkyrian scout ship, Stellar Observer, drifted silently in Earth's orbit, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the blue glow of the planet below. Captain Dehos stood on the command deck, his tall frame casting a long shadow across the polished floor as he studied the holographic display before him. His silver skin shimmered under the soft lighting as he frowned at the data streaming across the screen. "These readings must be incorrect," he muttered, tapping a long finger against the display. "Run the biological scans again." The ship's computer hummed briefly before confirming. "Scans verified. Human physiology analysis complete." Deho shook his head in disbelief. By Valkyrian standards, these humans were remarkably fragile creatures. Their bones would snap under even moderate Valkyrian gravity. Their muscles lacked the dense fiber structure common to most spacefaring species. Their respiratory system was inefficient, and their sensory capabilities were limited to a narrow spectrum. "Second Commander Hanbin, come look at this," Deho called. Hanbin approached, his movements graceful despite the heavy ceremonial armor that marked his rank. He stood beside his captain and studied the data. "Interesting," Hanbin said after a moment. "They appear almost unfinished, as if their evolution took an unexpected turn. Or stopped prematurely," Deho added. "Look at their endurance ratings. They tire quickly, heal slowly, and their lifespan barely reaches a single Valkyrian decade." Hanbin's faceplates shifted in the Valkyrian expression of dismissal. "Perhaps we should bypass this system entirely. The Council prefers species with more potential. These humans will likely never achieve meaningful space travel with such biological limitations." Daho's inner eyelids flickered, a sign he was deep in thought. The Galactic Council valued efficiency above all else. First contact protocols existed primarily to identify species worthy of inclusion in the greater galactic community. Those deemed unsuitable were typically left to develop in isolation, sometimes for millennia, until they either evolved more promising traits or destroyed themselves. And yet, Daho said softly, they've developed nuclear capabilities despite their limitations. Their electronic communications suggest rapid technological advancement despite their short lives. A curious anomaly, Hanbin agreed, but hardly worth our time. Daho tapped his ceremonial chest plate, a habit he'd developed when making difficult decisions. "Protocol dictates we establish preliminary contact with all sentient species capable of understanding the concept of worlds beyond their own. Prepare the diplomatic team. We'll follow standard procedures." Hanbin's faceplates shifted to indicate surprise, but he bowed slightly. "As you command, Captain." 2 days later, after careful observation of human communication patterns and social structures, the Valkyrian delegation landed their shuttle in a location humans called Geneva. Following Valkyrian protocol, they had announced their arrival 24 Earth hours in advance, giving the primitive species time to prepare without allowing them sufficient opportunity to mount effective defenses. The landing area was surrounded by human military vehicles, primitive machines that relied on combustion of fossil fuels. Daho noted this with a mixture of amusement and pity. These humans were centuries, perhaps millennia, behind Valkyrian technology. When the delegation emerged from their shuttle, they were met by 5 humans of varying heights, skin tones, and apparent ages. The Valkyrians towered over the tallest human by at least half a meter. Their ceremonial armor gleamed in the sunlight, pressure sensors automatically adjusting to Earth's lesser gravity. A middle-aged human male stepped forward. "I am Director Park, representing Earth's United Nations. We welcome you to our world." The Valkyrian translator implants processed the sound waves and converted them to understandable concepts. Daho was surprised by the informal tone. Most species, when first encountering the Valkyrians, displayed obvious fear or excessive deference. This human showed neither. "Captain Daho of the Galactic Exploration Fleet," he responded with formal precision. "We come under authority of the Galactic Council to establish preliminary relations with your species." Director Park smiled. a facial expression the Valkyrians had studied, but still found disconcerting. "Excellent. We've prepared a comfortable facility for our discussions. Would you like refreshments first, or shall we get straight to business?" Han Bin leaned close to his captain. They're remarkably casual for beings facing a technologically superior force, he whispered in their native tongue. Either extremely brave or dangerously ignorant of their situation. Dae-ho made the subtle hand motion that signified caution to his team. Something was unexpected here, though he couldn't pinpoint what. The negotiations that followed over the next 3 days continued to surprise the Valkyrian delegation. The humans were not intimidated by displays of advanced technology. They asked practical questions about propulsion systems and energy generation, but showed more interest in cultural exchange than technological benefits. Most puzzling was their negotiation style, where Valkyrians valued direct statements of interest and clear hierarchies of value. These humans engaged in what seemed like contradictory behaviors. They would concede minor points with surprising ease, then hold firm on seemingly trivial matters. They used humor during serious discussions and became serious when discussing what appeared to be lighter topics. On the final day, Director Park proposed a trade agreement that seemed to heavily favor the Valkyrians, offering Earth minerals in exchange for basic medical knowledge. Yet somehow, buried in the details of the agreement were clauses that would give humans access to information about multiple alien species, establishing Earth as a neutral trading zone that would benefit from transportation fees. As the Valkyrians prepared to depart, Dae-ho found himself unsettled by the experience. These physically unimpressive beings had somehow secured advantageous terms while appearing to make significant concessions. Was that a successful negotiation? Han Bin asked as their shuttle lifted from Earth. "I'm no longer certain," Dae-ho admitted. "They smile when they concede and remain expressionless when they gain advantage. Their communication contains layers of meaning our translators might have missed." Back aboard the Stellar Observer, Dae-ho spent hours drafting his report to the Galactic Council. Standard procedure was to classify species by their technological capability, biological potential, and resource value. Humans ranked low in all 3 categories by objective measures. Yet Dae-ho found himself writing, "There is something about these humans that defies conventional classification. Their physical limitations have perhaps driven them to develop compensatory skills in negotiation, adaptation, and innovation that our metrics do not adequately measure. I recommend continued observation with caution. There is something about these humans that we don't yet understand, something that might prove either valuable or dangerous to the Council's interests." He sent the report, unaware that this seemingly insignificant planet would soon challenge everything the Valkyrians thought they knew about intelligence, evolution, and power. The red dust of Mars swirled around the massive mining complex that stretched across Acidalia Planitia. 6 months had passed since the historic first contact between humans and Valkyrians, and the joint mining operation had been heralded as a symbol of interspecies cooperation. The facility extracted rare minerals that humans valued for electronics and that Valkyrians used in their propulsion systems, a mutually beneficial arrangement that had progressed smoothly until that fateful morning. Su Min checked the pressure seals on her environmental suit while walking through the airlock into Tunnel Complex B. As the human supervisor for the morning shift, she was responsible for coordinating with the Valkyrian engineering team on the day's extraction targets. She had worked with the alien miners for 3 months and had developed a grudging respect for their efficiency, even if their communication style remained frustratingly direct. "The Eastern Tunnel requires human inspection before blasting proceeds," announced Quan, the Valkyrian site manager, his translator device giving his words a metallic quality. "Our sensors detect anomalous readings in Section J12. "I'll send a team right away," Su Min replied, tapping instructions into her tablet. "What kind of anomalies are you seeing?" "Likely nothing significant," Quan said dismissively. "Your human safety protocols are excessive, but we comply. The delay is unfortunate." Su Min had grown accustomed to such comments. The Valkyrians considered human safety measures wasteful, just as they viewed human physical limitations with barely concealed pity. 2 hours later, as the inspection team worked through Section J-12, a miscommunication occurred that would change everything. The Valkyrian blasting crew, operating on their standard efficiency protocols, received clearance from their command center to proceed with the scheduled detonation. The clearance should have been withheld until the human team confirmed the tunnel stability, but somewhere between the two species' communication systems, the critical safety step was overlooked. The first blast weakened the tunnel supports. The second collapsed the entire section. 12 human workers were buried under tons of Martian rock. News of the disaster reached Earth within hours. Families were notified. Flags were lowered. The Valkyrian High Command, however, viewed the incident quite differently. Admiral Jiho stood before the High Command Assembly on the Valkyrian homeworld, his ceremonial armor gleaming under the purple light of the chamber. At 67 Valkyrian years old, he had overseen first contact with 17 different species and considered himself an expert on primitive civilizations. The mining incident on the human colony Mars has been thoroughly investigated, he announced to the gathered commanders. Our findings indicate that while Valkyrian protocols were followed, the human safety systems were incompatible with our standard procedures. He paused, allowing the data to display on the large screen behind him. The commander studied the information silently. We will offer standard reparations, Jiho continued confidently. The loss of a dozen specimens is regrettable but falls within acceptable parameters for industrial accidents. Our actuarial algorithms have calculated appropriate compensation based on human productive capacity and remaining life expectancy. Commander Su Jin, recently returned from a diplomatic mission to Earth, raised her hand. Admiral, humans place unusual value on individual lives. They may not view this through our pragmatic lens. Jiho's faceplates shifted in dismissal. All species value life. All species also understand that progress involves risk. The humans will accept our reparations as others have before them. Following protocol, Lieutenant Ta-Won was tasked with delivering the formal message to Earth's government. The young officer had studied human communication patterns and prided himself on understanding their peculiar emotional displays better than most Valkyrians. He crafted the message carefully, adding what he believed were appropriate expressions of regret before outlining the reparation package. Financial compensation for the families, a monument to the deceased workers, and a review of safety protocols that would not significantly impact production targets. When he transmitted the message to Earth's Interspecies Communication Center, he expected the standard acknowledgement and acceptance. Instead, silence followed. For one Earth day, Ta-Won assumed there were technical difficulties. By the third day, he reported the unusual response to his superiors. By the end of the first week, Admiral Jiho had taken personal interest in the situation. They are simply taking time to process the information, Jiho declared, though uncertainty had begun to creep into his assessment. Primitive species often need time to accept the inevitable. But as 1 week stretched to 2, and then 3, the silence became increasingly concerning. Valkyrian ships near Earth reported unusual activity. Human vessels were returning to their home planet. Commercial space traffic had decreased by 70%, and military satellites had changed their orbital patterns. They're preparing for something, Commander Su Jin warned during an emergency session of the High Command. This silence is deliberate. Preparing what? Jiho scoffed. Their military technology is centuries behind ours. Their weapons can barely reach their own moon without our assistance. On the 22nd day of silence, a transmission finally arrived from Earth. The command center fell quiet as Director Park's face appeared on the screen. The human's expression was unfamiliar to most Valkyrians present. Only Ta-Won recognized it as controlled anger. "Greetings, Admiral Jiho," Park began, his voice unnaturally even. "The people of Earth have considered your response to the deaths of our citizens on Mars." Jiho nodded, relieved that reason had prevailed. "We are prepared to implement the reparations immediately. We require the following: Park interrupted, an action that caused murmurs of surprise among the Valkyrians present. Interruption was considered deeply disrespectful in Valkyrian culture. What followed was a list of demands so extensive and audacious that several junior officers checked their translation devices for errors. The humans wanted full access to Valkyrian mining technology, safety protocols that would reduce efficiency by 40%, command access to Valkyrian military communications for transparency, and technology transfers that went far beyond what the Galactic Council permitted for species at Earth's development level. As the list continued, Jaiho's initial shock gave way to incredulous laughter. "They cannot be serious," he said to his commanders. "Do they not understand their position in the Galactic Order?" Tai-1 studied Director Park's face on the screen. "Sir, I believe they are completely serious." "Then they are delusional," Jaiho declared. "The death of 12 workers, while unfortunate, does not warrant restructuring our entire relationship." He turned back to the screen. "Director Park, your demands are impossible. The Galactic Council has strict protocols regarding technological exchange with developing species. We suggest you reconsider our generous reparation offer." Park's expression didn't change. "We anticipated your response, Admiral. Earth will now proceed accordingly." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the Valkyrian command center in uncomfortable silence. "What did he mean by that?" a junior officer asked. Jaiho dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. "Primitive posturing. Remind these humans of their place in the galactic hierarchy. They will accept our terms when they realize they have no alternative." Only Ta-1 and Su-Jin exchanged worried glances. They had spent more time studying humans than the others, and something in Director Park's tone had triggered an unfamiliar sensation in both of them. Something that, had they been human, they might have recognized as fear. The moon base Sentinel-6 floated silently at the edge of Valkyrian space, its sensors constantly scanning for unauthorized entry into the protected zone. For 20 years, nothing more exciting than the occasional lost merchant vessel had triggered its alerts. The base crew had grown accustomed to long periods of boredom, punctuated by routine maintenance and shift changes. Technician Du Yun yawned as he monitored the sensor array. His shift would end in 2 hours, and he was already thinking about the hot meal waiting for him in the base's cafeteria. The soft ping of an alert drew his attention back to the screen. "That's odd," he muttered, leaning forward. According to the readings, 7 vessels had just entered the outer detection zone. The ships were unfamiliar, neither Valkyrian nor belonging to any allied species in the database. Du Yun ran a verification scan, but the results were the same. 7 unknown ships, traveling in a tight formation, were deliberately heading toward Valkyrian territory. "Base Commander," Du Yun called over the communication system. "We have unidentified vessels approaching from Sector 47. They've just crossed the warning boundary." Commander Min-Su arrived at the control room minutes later, his face plates tight with concern. "Have they responded to identification requests?" "No, sir, but I've managed to get preliminary data on their composition." Du Yun displayed the scan results. "The energy signatures suggest..." "Wait, that can't be right." The commander leaned closer. "What is it?" "The signatures match human technology, sir, but they're much more advanced than anything in our database." Min-Su's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, a sign of disbelief. "Humans don't have ships capable of reaching this sector. Their propulsion systems are primitive." "Nevertheless, sir, that's what the scans indicate." Min-Su stared at the screen for a long moment before making his decision. "Alert High Command immediately. This is now a Level 3 security situation." Within hours, the news had reached Admiral Jaiho on the Valkyrian homeworld. The military command center buzzed with activity as officers analyzed the incoming data from Sentinel-6. 7 human ships, Jaiho repeated, his voice carrying a note of amusement. "They must be confused or lost. Their navigation systems are notoriously unreliable." His chief tactical officer, Wu Jin, looked less certain. The ships appear to be deliberately heading for our main supply route to the Iranian border. Their formation suggests military purpose. Humans don't have military vessels capable of interstellar travel, Jai-Ho dismissed. Not without assistance from more advanced species, and we've monitored all their communications. No other council races have offered them technology. General Sun Hai, who had remained silent until now, stepped forward. Could this be related to the mining incident on Mars? Their ultimatum expired yesterday. Jai-Ho's faceplates shifted in the Valkyrian equivalent of a scoff. They're either foolish or desperate if they think 7 ships constitute a threat. Even if they somehow acquired advanced technology, our smallest defense squadron could handle this situation. He made a quick decision. Order the 7th Fleet's forward division to intercept. 3 battle cruisers should be more than sufficient to escort these humans back to their territory. As the orders went out, Jai-Ho added, and have them record everything. This will make an excellent case study in primitive species overestimating their capabilities. Commander Sang Hun stood on the bridge of the Indomitable, the flagship of the Intercept Squadron. At 2 kilometers long and armed with the latest Valkyrian weaponry, the Indomitable had never been defeated in battle. 2 slightly smaller cruisers, the Resolute and the Dauntless, flanked his position as they approached the human vessels. Visual contact in 30 seconds, Commander, reported his sensor officer. Sang Hun nodded calmly. This would be a simple mission. Demonstrate overwhelming force, explain the territorial violation to the humans, and escort them back to their own space. If they resisted, a brief display of the Indomitable's forward batteries would quickly change their minds. The view screen activated, showing 7 sleek vessels unlike any human ships previously encountered. They were smaller than the Valkyrian cruisers, but moved with surprising grace and coordination. Open communication channels, Sang Hun ordered. After a moment, his communications officer looked up in surprise. Sir, they're hailing us. A human face appeared on the screen. An older male with gray hair and the insignia of military rank on his uniform. This is Admiral Yoon of the Earth Defense Force, the human said without preamble. We are here to discuss the matter of the Mars mining disaster and your government's inadequate response. Sang Hun maintained his composure despite his surprise at the human's directness. This is Commander Sang Hun of the Valkyrian Defense Fleet. You have entered restricted space without authorization. Return to your territory immediately, and diplomatic channels can address your concerns. Admiral Yoon's expression didn't change. We attempted diplomatic resolution. Your government dismissed our concerns and the lives of our people. We will not leave until this matter is properly addressed. Sang Hun felt a flicker of irritation. This display is pointless. Your 7 vessels cannot hope to stand against even one of our cruisers. Please don't force us to demonstrate this reality. For the first time, the human showed a slight expression. Something that might have been a smile, though it didn't reach his eyes. Commander, we hope your government would reconsider its position without further escalation. Since that hasn't happened, we will now provide a demonstration of our own. Before Sang Hun could respond, the human ships suddenly broke formation, moving with incredible speed in different directions. His tactical officer barely had time to shout a warning before energy readings spiked across the board. They're powering weapons, the tactical officer yelled. Configuration unknown. Shields at maximum, Sang Hun ordered calmly. Target the lead vessel and prepare to fire warning shots only. What happened next would be studied in Valkyrian military academies for decades to come. The human ships executed a series of maneuvers that seemed random at first, but soon revealed a devastating pattern. They were not attacking randomly. They were systematically targeting specific vulnerabilities in the Valkyrian shield configurations. More alarming still were their weapons. The first blast hit the Dauntless, and Sang Hun watched in disbelief as the energy signature registered on his screens. Impossible, his weapons officer whispered. They're using a hybrid system, Valkyrian shield penetration technology combined with Iranian energy focusing. Those systems are incompatible. Yet the evidence was undeniable as the Dauntless reported significant damage to its port engine array. The humans had somehow managed to combine technologies from different species in ways Valkyrian engineers had deemed impossible. Return fire, Sang Hun ordered. Full combat protocols authorized. But the Valkyrian targeting systems struggled to lock onto the human vessels, which moved in patterns that defied prediction algorithms. It was as if they knew exactly how Valkyrian combat computers functioned and had designed countermeasures specifically to confuse them. How are they anticipating our formations? Sang Hun demanded as another hit rocked the Indomitable. They're fighting as if they've trained against us for decades. His tactical officer looked up from the damage reports, faceplates tight with stress. Sir, their attack patterns don't match any known human military doctrine. They're using tactics that exploit specific weaknesses in our defense systems, weaknesses that aren't public knowledge. A particularly powerful blast struck the Indomitable's command section, causing secondary explosions throughout the deck. Emergency systems engage automatically, but Sang Hun could see from the reports that his flagship had sustained critical damage. The Resolute moved to protect the flagship, but 3 human vessels immediately converged on it, their coordinated attack overwhelming its defenses. Within minutes, the Resolute's engines were disabled, leaving it drifting helplessly. As the battle reached its climax, Admiral Yoon's face appeared again on the view screen. "This is your only warning," the human said calmly, as if discussing the weather rather than commanding a battle. "The deaths on Mars will be accounted for. Return to your homeworld with this message. Earth is prepared to negotiate fair terms, or to continue this demonstration on a larger scale. The choice is yours." The transmission ended, and the human vessels disengaged as quickly as they had attacked. They formed up in their original formation and departed, leaving behind 3 damaged Valkyrian cruisers, 2 disabled and 1, the Dauntless, completely destroyed. Sang Hun stared at the tactical display in stunned silence. In his 300 years of military service, he had never experienced such a defeat. His ship was crippled, his squadron decimated, and his understanding of humanity fundamentally shattered. As emergency teams worked to stabilize the Indomitable's critical systems, Sang Hun composed his report to Admiral Jo. How could he explain that 7 human ships had defeated 3 of the Valkyrian fleet's finest vessels? How could he make his superiors understand that everything they thought they knew about human capabilities was wrong? With a sense of dread, Sang Hun realized that this wasn't just a military defeat. It was the beginning of something much more significant, a shift in the galactic order that no one had seen coming. Commander Sang Hun woke to the soft beeping of unfamiliar medical equipment. His last memory was of the Indomitable's bridge erupting in flames as critical systems failed throughout the ship. He remembered giving the evacuation order before darkness claimed him. Now he found himself in a clean, well-lit room that looked nothing like a Valkyrian medical facility. The bed beneath him was oddly soft, clearly designed for a body structure different from his own. A window revealed an azure sky scattered with white clouds. Earth's sky. Sang Hun tried to sit up, but pain flared across his chest. Looking down, he saw that his injuries had been treated with careful precision. His natural silver-blue skin was visible where his armor had been removed, now covered with bandages that seemed perfectly suited to Valkyrian physiology. The door slid open, and a human in a white coat entered. The small creature checked something on a device, then nodded with apparent satisfaction. "Good morning, Commander," the human said in perfect Valkyrian, without using a translator. "I'm Dr. Kim. Your injuries are healing well, but you should avoid sudden movements for another day or 2. Sang Hun stared at the human. "Where am I? What happened to my crew?" "You're in a secure medical facility in what we call New Zealand," Dr. Kim replied. 17 of your crew members were recovered from escape pods. All are receiving treatment similar to yours. 6 others did not survive the battle. We've preserved their remains according to Valkyrian customs, at least as best we understand them. The physician's calm manner and detailed knowledge of Valkyrian medical needs confused Sang Hun, almost as much as the comfortable treatment itself. In Valkyrian military history, captured enemy officers were interrogated and often kept in sparse conditions until diplomatic exchanges could be arranged. "Why am I not in a cell?" Sang Hun asked bluntly. Dr. Kim's expression changed slightly, what humans called a smile, though Sang Hun had learned it could indicate many different emotions. "That's a question better answered by those who make such decisions," the doctor replied. "For now, focus on recovery. You'll be moved to more permanent quarters this afternoon, assuming your vital signs remain stable." The permanent quarters turned out to be a small but comfortable apartment with furnishings modified to accommodate Valkyrian height and body structure. The space included access to information systems loaded with Earth entertainment and educational materials, though no communication devices or weapons. It was, Sang Hun realized, a luxurious prison. But a prison nonetheless. 3 days passed before he received a visitor. The door opened to reveal Director Park, the human diplomat who had negotiated with Valkyrian representatives after first contact. Sang Hun recognized him from briefing files. Park entered alone, carrying no visible weapons or security devices. Another surprise, a Valkyrian would never meet a captured enemy commander without armed guards. "Commander Sang Hun," Park said with a slight bow. "I hope you found your accommodations acceptable." Sang Hun's faceplates shifted in the Valkyrian expression of cautious acknowledgement. "They are unexpected. In your position, we would provide basic necessities, not comfort." Park gestured to a chair designed for human proportions, while taking a seat on one modified for Valkyrian use. "That's precisely why we don't do things your way." Unable to contain his confusion, Sang Hun asked directly, "Why treat enemies with such consideration? Is this some form of psychological manipulation?" Park smiled. A genuine expression of amusement, Sang Hun thought, though human facial expressions remained challenging to interpret. "No manipulation," Park replied. "We treat you this way because that's what separates us from you. It's a reminder to ourselves of who we choose to be, even when dealing with those who wouldn't return the same courtesy." The human's words made little strategic sense to Sang Hun. In Valkyrian military doctrine, resources were never wasted on enemy comfort unless there was tactical advantage to be gained. "Your ships," Sang Hun said, changing topics. "They employed technology that should have been beyond your capabilities. How did humans advance so quickly?" "We didn't advance quickly," Park responded. "We were studying your species long before you discovered us. We monitored your communications, analyzed your technology, identified your tactical patterns." Sang Hun's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, the Valkyrian equivalent of disbelief. "Impossible. Our technologies are vastly superior. Our detection systems would have identified any monitoring devices or vessels near our territory." "Are they?" Park questioned, leaning forward slightly. "Superior, I mean. Your technology developed along certain paths based on your biology and environment. Ours developed differently." The human stood and walked to the window, gazing out at the rolling green hills beyond. "Humans evolved differently from most galactic species. We began as prey animals, constantly hunted. Then we became something unique. Prey that turned into predators." Park turned back to face Sang Hun. "That evolutionary path gave us distinct advantages. We understand both fear and power in ways your species never will. We know what it means to be vulnerable, which makes us uniquely capable of identifying vulnerabilities in others." He returned to his seat. "Your ships broadcast their tactical communications on frequencies you believe are secure. They errant, not to receivers designed by beings who spent millennia detecting predators before they could be seen." Sang Hun processed this information slowly. If true, it represented a fundamental misunderstanding of human capabilities by Valkyrian intelligence. "You're suggesting humans secretly observed our civilization while pretending to be a newly discovered species?" Sang Hun asked, trying to grasp the implications. "Not exactly," Park clarified. "We genuinely are a young spacefaring civilization by your standards. But we've been listening to the stars for centuries, intercepting stray communications from dozens of species, including Valkyrians. We learned your languages, studied your technology through your own technical manuals and scientific exchanges with other races that we intercepted. But the ships? Sang Hun persisted. The weapons that combined Valkyrian shield penetration with Oronian energy focusing. Those systems are fundamentally incompatible according to known physics. Park's expression changed to something Sang Hun couldn't interpret. Known physics according to whom? The Galactic Council races have all evolved along similar lines, most from apex predator species. You share certain assumptions about how technology should develop. He continued, humans approach problems differently. When we intercepted information about both technologies, we didn't see incompatibility. We saw possibility, because we weren't bound by your evolutionary and cultural biases. The revelation stunned Sang Hun into silence. Everything about human capability had been misjudged, not because humans were particularly advanced, but because they thought differently. But our true advantage, Park said, leaning closer, is something your language doesn't even have a word for: spite. Sang Hun's translator implant struggled with the final word, eventually rendering it as retributive determination, with a footnote indicating inexact translation. We will endure tremendous suffering not just to win, Park continued, but to ensure those who harmed us lose. When your people dismissed the deaths of our miners as acceptable losses, you triggered something in human psychology that your species has never evolved. Sang Hun felt an unfamiliar sensation, something the human might recognize as a chill of fear. You never needed our technology. We needed time, Park corrected. Time you generously provided while underestimating us. Time to adapt what we learned from your communications and technical databases. Time to prepare for the possibility that your species might not respect ours. The human stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Rest well, Commander. Tomorrow, you'll be joined by several of your recovered officers. In a week, assuming diplomatic negotiations proceed as expected, you'll all be returned to your people. As Park reached the door, Sang Hun found his voice again. Director Park, what happens now? Between our species. The human turned back, his expression serious. That depends entirely on your leadership, Commander. Humans don't want war. We've had enough of that among ourselves, but we will not be dismissed or underestimated again. After Park left, Sang Hun stood at the window for hours, watching Earth's sun set over the landscape. He thought about everything he had learned about the strange, physically weak species that had somehow defeated Valkyria's finest ships. He wondered what report he would give when he returned home, and whether anyone would believe him. Most troubling was the realization that the humans had won their victory not through superior technology or numbers, but through understanding. They had studied the Valkyrians thoroughly, while the Valkyrians had barely bothered to understand humans at all. In that moment, Sang Hun realized that the greatest threat humans posed wasn't their ships or weapons. It was their capacity to see clearly what others missed. And if Director Park was to be believed, their willingness to suffer any hardship not just to win, but to ensure their enemies lost. That night, Sang Hun dreamed of prey animals with knowing eyes, watching silently from the shadows as mighty predators passed by, oblivious to the danger lurking just beyond their awareness. The grand chamber of the Galactic Council glittered with the light of 3 artificial suns. Delegates from 17 species sat in rising tiers around the central speaking platform. The emergency session had been in progress for 3 days, with tempers growing shorter by the hour. The Brunari ambassador, Keltor, slammed his 4-fingered hand on the console before him. His crystalline skin reflected blue light across the chamber as he spoke. The humans must be contained, he insisted, voice amplification carrying his words to every corner of the vast room. Their unpredictability makes them dangerous to galactic stability. They defeated 3 Valkyrian warships with technology they shouldn't possess. What happens when they turn that technology against the rest of us? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. The Valkyrian representative, Admiral Jeho, sat in silence. The defeat of his ships had damaged Valkyrian prestige throughout the galaxy. More troubling were the reports from Commander Sang Hun about human capabilities and intentions. The Oronian delegate rose next, her feathered crest expanding to show agitation. The humans have apparently combined our energy-focusing systems with Valkyrian shield penetration technology. Technology we've never shared with them. How did they acquire this knowledge? What else might they have taken without our awareness? As the debate continued, tensions in the chamber rose. Some species advocated for immediate military action against Earth. Others suggested a complete quarantine of the Sol system. A few voices called for caution and further study, but they were largely drowned out by fearful rhetoric. Admiral Jiho finally requested speaking rights. The chamber quieted as he took the central platform. The humans are more complex than we initially assessed, he admitted, the words clearly difficult for him. We misjudged their technological capabilities and their cultural responses. Commander Sang Hun's report suggests they may have been monitoring our communications for decades, learning our languages and studying our weaknesses. A wave of alarm swept through the chamber. However, Jiho continued, the humans did not destroy our vessels when they had the opportunity. They disabled two and destroyed one only after repeated warnings. This suggests restraint, a quality we should consider carefully before taking drastic action. The Zentari representative, a hulking figure with gray armored skin, laughed harshly. Restraint, or simply awareness of their limitations. They cannot possibly stand against the combined might of the council races. As the debate reached its peak intensity, a chime sounded, indicating an unscheduled arrival. The chamber doors slid open silently. Every head turned to see a single figure enter, a human, walking calmly toward the central platform. Ambassador Jun was smaller than most delegates present, his simple blue uniform lacking the ornate decorations typical of council representatives. He walked with steady confidence, seemingly unconcerned by the hundreds of alien eyes tracking his movement. He carried no weapons and wore no protective gear, despite being surrounded by species who had just been discussing his people's containment or destruction. The council security chief stepped forward to intercept him, but the council elder, ancient even by the standards of his long-lived species, raised a hand to allow the humans approach. The council recognizes Ambassador Jun of Earth, the elder announced, curiosity evident in his tone. Though we note your presence was not requested at this session. Jun bowed slightly to the elder before turning to face the assembled delegates. The chamber fell completely silent, a rarity in council proceedings. Esteemed representatives, Jun began, his voice clear and unhurried. I apologize for interrupting your deliberations, but I understood you were discussing my species. It seemed efficient to address your concerns directly. He paused, surveying the chamber. I bring a simple message. Humanity offers two paths forward, mutual respect or mutual destruction. We prefer the first but are fully prepared for the second. The Zentari representative rose to his full 3-meter height, towering over the other delegates. Your species cannot hope to defeat all of us combined. This is either bravery born of ignorance or foolishness born of desperation. Jun smiled slightly, an expression several alien species found unsettling. Perhaps not in direct confrontation, he acknowledged. But we've studied each of you thoroughly during our years of listening to your transmissions. We know which of your alliances are based on convenience rather than conviction. We understand which historical grievances still simmer beneath diplomatic pleasantries. His gaze swept the chamber deliberately. Most importantly, we've already begun sharing our technological innovations with species you've long oppressed. This statement triggered an immediate reaction. Delegates turned to each other, suspicious whispers spreading through the chamber like wildfire. Several representatives activated their communication devices, presumably contacting their governments for verification. What innovations? Demanded the Brennari ambassador. What species? That would be telling, Jun replied calmly. But consider this, the Valkyrians believed their communications were secure. They were wrong. How many of your secret communications have also been intercepted? How many of your suppressed populations might welcome assistance from a species with no existing alliances or prejudices? The chamber fell silent as previously hostile delegates exchanged uneasy glances. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't our technology or even our tactics, Jun continued. It's our ability to unite former enemies under a common cause. Several of you have already accepted our alliance proposals your neighbors know nothing about. Admiral Jeho studied the human carefully. The ambassador's confidence suggested he wasn't bluffing. If humans had truly formed secret alliances with multiple council races, the political landscape was already shifting beneath their feet. What do you want? The council elder asked directly, cutting through the growing tension. Equality, Jun answered simply. Recognition of humanity as a full member of the galactic community, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Access to shared knowledge and technology. Fair treatment of our citizens in all jurisdictions. The same things every sentient species desires. And if we refuse, asked the Oronian delegate. Then we continue on the path that brought me here today, Jun replied. We forge our own alliances. We develop our own technologies. We protect our interests with whatever means necessary. He paused. But that path leads to instability for all of us. The council elder called for a recess, and the chamber emptied except for the inner circle of senior representatives. What followed was 6 hours of intense negotiation, with Ambassador Jun calmly addressing concerns, clarifying human intentions, and occasionally making carefully measured concessions. When the full council reconvened, the elder announced a provisional agreement. Earth would receive probationary membership in the Galactic Council. A technology exchange program would be established, with appropriate safeguards. A joint commission would investigate the Mars mining incident and establish new safety protocols for mixed-species operations. In the months that followed, galactic politics underwent a fundamental restructuring. The humans didn't seek domination. They merely insisted on equality. Their unique perspective, combining the caution of prey with the confidence of predators, brought fresh solutions to ancient problems. Several smaller species, long ignored in council deliberations, found a powerful ally in humanity. Trade routes were renegotiated, defensive pacts redrawn, and scientific cooperation expanded across previously rigid boundaries. 1 year after the emergency session, Admiral Jeho attended a diplomatic reception on Earth. He found himself standing beside Ambassador Jun, watching as representatives from formerly hostile species engaged in animated conversation. You knew, Jeho said quietly. When your ships defeated mine, you already knew how the council would respond. Jun nodded. We had run thousands of simulations based on historical council proceedings. Your responses were predictable. And the alliances you mentioned, were they real or merely a bluff to force our cooperation? The human smiled. Does it matter now? The outcome is what counts. A more equitable galaxy for all species. Jeho considered this. You could have revealed yourselves earlier. Why wait until we discovered you? Timing, Jun replied. We needed to understand the galactic political landscape completely before entering it. If we had announced our presence prematurely, we would have been categorized, contained, and controlled like many other developing species. The Admiral nodded slowly. In his 300 years of life, he had never encountered a species quite like humanity. In his memoirs, published years later, Jeho would write words that became famous throughout the galaxy. We thought we were discovering humans. In reality, they were finally allowing themselves to be found, but only after they were ready for us. Their greatest deception was not in hiding their technology or capabilities, but in appearing to be discovered when they had been watching us all along. In this, they taught the galaxy an invaluable lesson about perception and assumption, a lesson some of us are still struggling to learn. As new species were discovered in the following decades, the approach to first contact changed dramatically. No longer did the Council assume technological superiority equated to cultural advancement. No longer were physical capabilities the primary measure of a species' potential contribution to galactic society. And no council member ever again made the mistake of underestimating a species simply because they appeared weak, primitive, or unassuming. After all, as humans had demonstrated so effectively, sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that knows what it means to be prey. The end.